What is going on, everybody? I am sorry for the noise, but we have a running car. Finally. Let me tell you what I found. Stick around. Okay, so let me go ahead and just set this up. I'm going to leave this thing around for a little bit because it hasn't ran in weeks. Am I crooked? Do I look a little crooked here? How's that? Is that better? So I dove into the schematics here, specifically the run schematics. As you can see, TDS for the win again. This is the crank relay there. On top of it, I went into the DTC P0615 steps, checkout steps here. Went through all that crap. Here's what I found. Doing the checkout steps, the relay, the ignition relay was not getting the ground from the ECM. So what it does is you get a trigger from the BCM. Basically, well, that's not necessarily correct. Yeah, you get power from the BCM to the relay. And it goes through that 15 amp fuse that's underneath the floorboard on this particular setup. And then whenever you hit the start button, the ECM supplies the relay a ground, which latches it in, closes the relay, and starts the starter. So that step was not happening. What was really throwing me off though is everything shuts down, and I thought, oh man, something else has got to be going on. Now, whenever it's in crank, it takes power away from about everything else. You only have a couple power sources that stay active during both on and crank. You hear people talk about that all the time. Well, that's why, because basically it shuts down all these other electrical systems, A, because it could be damaging during the crank, and B, you need all the amperage that you have available during crank to crank the thing up. So that's what I was seeing there. And then it times out after like 6 or 7 seconds, goes back over to on, everything powers back up. So what happened was these connectors on the E22 use the older style barrel connectors instead of the square ones. On the E38 and E67, they use a connector. It's like this, only a little bit smaller, uses that style of connector. Well, these are pretty self-retaining the way that they're designed. The barrel connectors, though, not so much. They have a clip in there that really contains them, but it doesn't clip as positively. So they also have this thing that slides in after you've got everything in there that retains them, make sure everything stays tight. Well, the relay ground from the ECM just wasn't seated quite enough, and so it was pushing up out of the connector whenever the connector was being made. So once I found that, I was able to reseat that thing, get it popped in there good. So that's what it was. I'm going to go through and double check all the other ones. Last I checked, we haven't gotten any check engine lights yet, surprisingly, but we also haven't driven it. Thing really struggled to start up at first, but for multiple reasons. Of course, we got reduced handling right now because the tires are flat. I haven't aired these tires back up since I painted them. There's the paint job. There's my ghetto spare. I've got spacers I need to throw on there for my, not ghetto spare, but my cheap drag pack fronts. So I'm going to button up the harnesses here, kind of get them to the point where they'll stay together, tape them up loosely, get them tucked up out of the way, get the ECM mounted again, and get the wheels back on this thing and see if we can take it down the road. Stick around. Okay, so I kind of loosely did the looms here with my favorite loom tape, aka hockey stick tape. Got her buttoned up good enough where I should be able to get it mounted back up in the car and not really have any strain on anything. There's a couple spares that are sticking out. Those have to do with the oxygen sensors. I don't have those hooked up. The wideband stuff I don't have hooked up yet. But basically what I'm wanting to do now is get the thing running, possibly even to the point of driving it down to the end of the driveway and back, see what check engine lights that we set, because that will determine what we need to fix before we take this thing in for registration and inspection. But at least we're running for now. We were up until I did the loom. Hopefully no wires pulled loose. That's always the scary part of wrapping up a loom, especially one as crappy as this. But I've got the connectors in so I can finally do the E67 pinouts properly, so I can get rid of all those splices and wire them directly in with the proper crimps, all that stuff. So that will be happening probably next weekend. Then I can do a final cleanup on the loom, strip it way back, you know, an extra foot or so, separate the wires out properly, and route them down their own pathways into the different harness connectors. But this will get us by for now. So I'm going to get the tires aired up back on the vehicle, kind of get it ready to go. I still need to do the front suspension bushings. I haven't gotten around to doing those yet, and a lot of guys have told me that I need to go ahead and do the tie rod ends, because the tie rod and tow rod ends, they wear out very easily on these. They're not that expensive, so I need to go ahead and get some of those in. I'll probably get those in before I do the front suspension bushings. Already done the rear. There's video out there if you want to check that out. It's the same as the C6 Corvettes, pretty straightforward, just, you know, dirty work. That's all it is. So I'm going to button the rest of this up, try and get this thing mounted back in its place, and get it down on the ground. Okay, so got the car kind of buttoned back up here. Got the wheels back on it. It's still up on jack stands, mainly because I've got to get underneath it and get the O2 sensors out so I can rewire those, because that check engine light was definitely showing up. The cam sensors are throwing a check engine light, so I'm going to have to swap back the cam sensors, which sucks because I cut these wires really short. So I'm going to get some hookup wire and extend these harnesses out a little bit so I've got room, because as you can see, the factory wire on the cam sensor, I trimmed it and then crimped the connectors for the new cam sensors. But I've got the old connectors. If I can, I'll see if I can find the pins for those so I can repin it with some hookup wire. But that's about it for now. I mean, the car's running. The check engine lights we were expecting. There was one for the MAF sensor, but I don't think it came back. I think it was probably related to it running a little bit weird. So hopefully by January 1st maybe, be able to get this thing back out. Oh, and I've got issues with the tire pressure monitors. This one's dead. I don't know. Remind me, do these require spin up to read? Because I didn't know if being able to stick tire pressure sensors in a PVC pipe and pressuring that up would be the solution, because obviously, you know, we don't care about TPMS on this car. So, or if there's any other solutions, hit up the comments down below and let me know. But that being said, I'm going to wrap it up for the night, get cleaned up, and hang out. So you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and always be tuning.